Don't fret, don't overreact, but make a move. That is the motto for week 7 on the waiver wire, because we are essentially halfway through the fantasy regular season, and so that means we got to start getting aggressive. Even if there aren't as many obvious options this week compared to last week on the waiver wire in fantasy football, there is still room for moves here, especially with the fact that we've got some excellent teams and fantasy players on bye week. So we're going to need some fill-in flex players. It's a great week for wide receiver in week 7, but there are also some players at the other positions, running back, quarterback, tight end as well. And so we will get into some of the more volatile players that are worth betting on in week 7. What's up, everyone? My name is Matt Savoca from Stokastic.com, and I'm bringing you my waiver wire picks for week 7 in the NFL. And this is recorded prior to Monday Night Football. We want to get the info to the people. We'll give you some ideas about who to look for in that Monday Night Football game, but we want you to be as prepared as ever to beat your opponents as we get into the second half of the NFL fantasy regular season. And of course, we are brought to you today by DraftKings Sportsbook, who has just an awesome offer that we want to tell you about. $5 moneyline bet on any team. That can be the NFL, it could be hockey, which is back, the NBA, which is back, it could be college football, it could be the biggest favorite you can find. If you win, you get $200 free in bets. It's as simple as that. Click the link in the video description below, and let's get into the waiver wire action. We start, as we do every single week, with the injuries we're watching. Not only do we have lingering injuries from players like Jonathan Taylor, who didn't even play in week 6 nor week 5, but we also have new injuries to talk about. Marquise Brown's got a foot injury, and he's got DeAndre Hopkins coming back from suspension on his own team. J.K. Dobbins had his surgically repaired knee tightened up on him, didn't play in the second half of that Baltimore-New York Giants game. Kenny Pickett sidelined with a head injury along with his teammate Pat Freiermuth. Robbie Anderson essentially quit or was kicked off the Carolina Panthers sideline at some point during the game. And we've got players like Cam Brate, another head injury, Deion Jackson, a leg injury after playing very well in place of Jonathan Taylor, and Randall Cobb, veteran wide receiver, also carted off with an ankle injury as well. Not necessarily the most fantasy relevant, but it will change the way these offenses operate, and it does happen to affect the waiver wire picks we have today. Let's get into the action on who our top priorities are. There aren't exactly Kenneth Walker type players to bet on, but there are still players worth putting some fab budget on this week. Let's get into it. We'll start with Ravens running back Kenyan Drake. This is really my top priority running back option if you are really hurting at that position. I realize some people are, especially with the bye weeks that are coming up this week. 12 opportunities this week, and especially saw more in the second half when J.K. Dobbins, as I mentioned before, didn't play after halftime. He averaged 11.9 yards per carry. That's going to get it done against a Giants defense that has been impressive, to say the least. 19 fantasy points, that's going to do it, and they're playing Cleveland next week, one of the worst rush defenses in the NFL. We saw New England run all over them in week 6. Kenyan Drake, if he gets this backfield, I realize he has Lamar Jackson there sharing touches, but at the same time, Kenyan Drake, if J.K. Dobbins misses time, is the top priority option for me this week. Outside of Drake, I'm not seeing much more. I'm seeing a couple flash in the pan players. Like, I'm not going to JaMychal Hasty, the third running back on the Jacksonville Jaguars, though he did have a nice touchdown run last week. Ultimately, I'm looking at a couple Monday night players, assuming they're not hurt. Remember, we're recording this before the Monday night game, Broncos versus Chargers, but I like Mike Boone and Joshua Kelly, both RB2s on their own team. But if something were to happen to the RB1 in front of them, we're talking about an every down player and some evidence, especially in Kelly's case, that they can be efficient on their touches. Also want to take a look at Malcolm Brown. With Cam Akers away from the Rams indefinitely, Brown was second in the team in backfield touches. And I honestly think that he could have a huge role in the second half of the season, again, if Akers is going to miss significant time or not be with the team any further. And then after that, I think it's time we talk wide receivers. This is an excellent week to be bidding on a wide receiver. If you need a flex play at the end of your roster, why not Tyquan Thornton? The second-round pick for the New England Patriots had his first NFL game last week after being on IR to start the season and scored 2 touchdowns on 37 yards receiving. I get it. 5 targets isn't a ton here, but this is a player who was breaking out in the preseason before this shoulder injury and then immediately made an impact his first game in the NFL. This probably means he's a good player. Bailey Zappi and Mac Jones, when he returns, are going to need all the help they can get. I think we're seeing the New England receiving core changing of the guard a little bit. I think Thornton, 6'2", 220 pounds, and a ton of speed. He is a necessary weapon on a team devoid of it. They scored 38 points. That is very un-Patriots-like. Maybe Thornton is the reason behind that. I like him as my top wide receiver priority this week. I should say Thornton is my top priority, assuming Rondale Moore hasn't been dropped in your leagues. I have seen leagues where Moore was dropped. He's about 40% rostered in Yahoo leagues right now. We've seen some fluctuation over the last few weeks because DeAndre Hopkins is coming back. But guys, he needs to be rostered now that Marquise Brown is dealing with a foot injury. We know Brown is the 1B at least, maybe even the 1A with Hopkins, making Rondale Moore at the best the number 2 or the 3rd overall option in this Arizona receiving game. But with their defense in Arizona being as bad as it is, and the passing game being in flux with both Hopkins and now Brown with an injury, you need to roster Moore, who is getting consistent workload and a every down snap share. He is getting 10 targets against Seattle. That'll do it. And the next 5 games look excellent from a schedule perspective. New Orleans, Minnesota, Seattle, and the Rams upcoming. Not too tough defensively, and some shootout potential in all of those game environments. Rondale Moore, assuming he's available, he's a little bit ahead of Thornton. And most leagues, this doesn't really matter. But you got to check for Moore this week. And it's a little bit of the same story with the Indianapolis Colts' Alec Pierce. He had the game-winning touchdown against the Jacksonville Jaguars, arguably Matt Ryan's best throw as a Colt. Pierce came down with it after beating one-on-one coverage. He's almost averaging 8 targets per game over the last 3 weeks and 15 yards per catch in 3 of the last 4 games. He's being efficient with those touches as well, and he's doing it on a sub 60% snap share. What if we see that snap share start to creep towards 75, 80%? What does that do to his route participation rate? What does that do to his overall targets if he's getting the ball this much? And then look at the schedule. At Tennessee, then Washington, New England, and Las Vegas. Another player with some shootout potentials and some not good defenses, I should say, in the schedule upcoming. Plus his quarterback, throwing 58 times last week. If he's going to throw nearly 60 times in a game, then 2 wide receivers can succeed in Indianapolis, even when Jonathan Taylor returns. I like Alec Pierce rest of season. And my final wide receiver pick, another rookie here. Check if Jahan Dotson was dropped in your league. He's rostered in just 36% of leagues right now because he hasn't played since week 4. Weeks 1 and 2, he was the hotness, right? He was playing excellent for Washington, but those 2 weeks off, some people have had to drop him now. And he gets Green Bay next week. Green Bay's defense is backsliding or possibly bad. They're below league average in Football Outsiders defensive DVOA. And while Carson Wentz, the starting quarterback for Washington, also his status is up in the air, that's not necessarily a bad thing. They've got Taylor Heineke, rookie Sam Howell, who could be serviceable at best, and I think they will get Jahan Dotson some one-on-one jump balls as well. Dotson, a deep target with speed, is a much-needed asset for Washington right now if they have any hope to come back in the NFC East. And if you're looking for a streaming quarterback, look no further than the Colts' Matt Ryan, who's rostered in just 29% of leagues right now. He's throwing a ton. His schedule is easing up, and he seems to finally be finding a rhythm with his top 2 receivers, Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce, who we talked about earlier on this show. Ryan quietly 350 plus passing yards in 50% of his games this season. I realize the floor has been low, but the ceiling, he proved last week, can also be very high. It was his best game as a member of the Colts in week 6 against an above average Jacksonville defense. That throw at the end of the game completely changes my opinion almost about how this Indy offense can operate even when Taylor returns. He will obviously be giving the ball to Jonathan Taylor when Taylor is healthy, but Matt Ryan clearly is still capable at his advanced age of 37. To the tight end position, if you're looking for some streaming options, it's actually a pretty strong week. You've got 3 tight ends who are rostered in just 40% or less of leagues right now. Check for Robert Tonyan, dropped in several leagues that I'm in, so I know that this is a real thing people are dealing with. He's got Washington, and last week, 12 targets, 90 yards receiving, and could be utilized even more now that Randall Cobb is out indefinitely. Then Hunter Henry, remember him? 7 targets and a long touchdown. He has an easy matchup going against the Chicago Bears this week. And then Daniel Bellinger, another rookie. Rookie tight ends don't usually have any sort of fantasy relevancy, but Bellinger quietly was the leading receiver, all wide receivers and tight ends, for a decrepit New York Giants passing game. 5 targets, Yeah, I guess you lead the team, but 2 TDs in the last 2 games playing against the Jacksonville Jaguars. If you need a what the heck flex or just a streaming tight end for 1 week, you could do worse than Daniel Bellinger. Hey guys, one more quick shout out to our presenting sponsor, DraftKings Sportsbook. Free money is hard to come by in fantasy football or sports betting, and that's why we're telling you to take advantage of this awesome offer. $5 moneyline bet. If you win, it's $200 free in DraftKings Sportsbook. Any favorite, any underdog, any team you want. It can be the biggest favorite you can find in any sport. $5 down, you get $200 if they win. Click the link in the video description below. And my streaming defenses for week 7, we've got 3 high-quality options. The New England Patriots, we mentioned some of the players. Well, they're playing the Bears, and the Bears don't scare us at all. They just can't score. They don't pass well when they do pass. And the Patriots trounced a Browns team that I was surprised to see them completely outplay. I think they dominate the Bears from start to finish. They're my top streaming option of the week. Then look at the Raiders, who were on bye last week. They get the Houston Texans at home. This is not the best defense in the world, but they're playing one of the worst offenses that appear to be completely in flux. And kind of the same thing with the Green Bay Packers, facing a Washington team who might not have their starting quarterback. If you're facing Taylor Heineke or Sam Howell or some combination of the two, hopefully that Green Bay Packers defense, which hasn't looked good at all the last 2 weeks, can put things together against a struggling Washington team. And that's going to do it, guys. My top waiver wire priorities at every single position for week 7 in the fantasy football season. This is a time to make some serious moves. Stay aggressive, stay confident. Remember, make a move, don't fret, don't overreact. That's this week's motto. My name is Matt Savoca from Stokastic.com. Take advantage of that offer in the video description below. DraftKings Sportsbook. Free money is hard to come by. We will be back with all the coverage you need for week 7 and every week in the NFL. Until next time, I'm Matt Savoca. We'll see you guys later.